What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Draft Season Never Ends, the Aftermath NFL Draft Podcast. I am Chris McGlynn. Thank you so much for tuning in today. First time in a long time. Happy to be back here, getting a chance to do a show once again. And if it's football season, it's officially kind of almost sort of here. We had our first preseason game just yesterday night. As I'm recording this, it's Friday, August 5th. The Hall of Fame game between the Jaguars and Raiders took place on August 4th, Thursday night, and it was just great to see some NFL football back on. Was it very good football? No, it was not, but it was still fun to see the NFL back in action. And we're just a few weeks away from the start of the regular season. College football is nearing its start as well. It's a busy, busy time of year, and really, really exciting time of year. I got fantasy football drafts coming up. Going through scouting reports right now, getting set for this upcoming college season, scouting the draft, getting ready for this exciting 2023 draft class. And I want to start with probably the most exciting position group today, and that's going to be the quarterback position. There's going to be some really, really good position players out there, whether it be receivers or running backs or edge rushers or corners in this upcoming draft class. But the thing that has everybody the most excited for this draft class definitely has to be the quarterbacks. And I have my watch list that's been up on aftermathsports.com. You can go check it out. It's in 3 different parts. Just that's because there are so many quarterbacks that I am interested in watching this year. I have 36 as of right now on my watch list, which is, there's guys all over the map. Of course, you'll have your big name guys like Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud from Alabama and Ohio State. But then, there's a couple guys like, Phil Dracovic from Boston College, Toalia Tagovailoa from Maryland, Tanner Mordecai at SMU, JT Daniels at West Virginia, Cameron Rising at Utah. I mean, the list goes on and on. So this is a really, really deep quarterback class, way deeper than anything we've seen in the last couple of years. And there's some good top-end talent as well. Right now, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing about 5 quarterbacks go in the 2023 first round. So a ton of talent there. I actually do want to talk about those top 5 quarterbacks today, give you a breakdown on my top 5 as it stands right now. It's very, very early. As I said, this is August. These are not final player evaluations, but from the initial film that I've watched, some of the measurements I've been able to look at and stuff like that, just get a sense for what this player is and what they could possibly be in the NFL. This is where I currently stand. So we're going to go through top 5 quarterbacks as it stands right now. Lots of room for change. But let's start at number 5. And a smaller school player here that I really, really like, and that is Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. He's incredibly accurate, has really, really good arm talent, and overall is just a fun player to watch. It's really funny because if you go back and think about it, Coastal Carolina really burst into the scene a couple years back when they had that fantastic season, ended up beating BYU and Zach Wilson at the end of the year in a game that was kind of scheduled very last minute, and that was all part of the COVID-19 season. The schedule changed quite a bit very frequently, and shouldn't be a surprise that that was the case given everything that went on that season. That being said, it ended up being one of the most exciting stories of the entire year, and they didn't quite belong in the college football playoff conversation, but they were at least there. And a big part of that is because of McCall. He is one of the best when it comes to completion percentage, and he led the nation last year in passer rating and yards per attempt. Now keep that in mind. That's led the nation. That includes guys like Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, and a couple of the other guys are going to be here in this top 5. Stetson Bennett, who ended up going on to win a national championship. All those guys are included in there, and McCall had better numbers than a lot of them. Now, granted, he's playing against much worse competition. The Sun Belt's solid, but it's nowhere near the SEC or the Big Ten. So that's going to be the biggest knock on him, I think, at this point. There's some really fun kind of on-the-run, throwing off platform type of stuff. Now, he doesn't have elite arm strength, but there's enough there that makes me think that he could be a really solid NFL quarterback, really solid starter in the NFL for a number of years to come. All right, let's go on to number 4 here, and that's going to be Will Levis, the quarterback out of Kentucky. Now, I've seen takes all over the map on this guy. I've seen people have him all the way up at number 1, being the top quarterback in this class, which I think is a little bold at this point. He has the potential to get there, no question about it, but a little bit bold for my taste at this point in the process. But I've also seen people rank him outside of the top 5, well down at 8, 9. He is a good quarterback class, so being in the top 5 is a good place to be. But I think Levis has a really strong arm. He's one of those guys that you don't have to worry about the arm strength being an issue at the next level. He's a Penn State transfer. He ended up taking over at Kentucky in his debut season last year and looked really good. Keep in mind that he played the best of probably any quarterback last year against Georgia, save Bryce Young in the SEC championship game. Bryce Young looked really strong there and did not look quite as good in the national championship game. Now, of course, that was without his top 2 receivers, so that makes a bit of a difference. But when you look at him, he definitely seems like he's got all the traits that you would want to have in a quarterback that's an NFL starting caliber quarterback when it comes to Levis here. He's got a big season ahead of him here. There's a lot to prove still. There's no question about it. He had 13 interceptions this past year, so that's definitely going to be a question he has to answer. If he can keep that in the single digits, probably closer to like 7, 8, something like that, I think that concern will probably start to dissipate, at least enough so the teams are not going to knock him for it come the draft next year. It's still going to be a concern. You can still point to it and say, yeah, I'm not really so sure about that. But there's definitely enough there that you look at and go, okay, like he's going to be probably good enough to take care of the football at the NFL level. It's a similar thing that Matt Corral dealt with heading into this year. He had a ton of interceptions in his 2020 season, cut down on them quite a bit in this 2021 season, and ended up, of course, not really going very high. But I also think that Levis has a lot more he's a lot more that he brings to the table from a skills and traits perspective that Corral did not. So I think Will Levis right now, number 4 quarterback in this draft class. Let's go to number 3, and that's going to be Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami. Now this is a little bit of projection here. There's no question about that, but I had a chance to watch Miami play Pittsburgh, and this is kind of where my jumping off point was when it came to watching Tyler Van Dyke. And the truth was that Miami had the better quarterback in that game. Keep in mind that the opposing quarterback was Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh, who ended up being a first-round pick by the Steelers this year. So I really think that speaks volumes to just how talented Van Dyke is when it comes to being on the football field. And this wasn't like, Miami was just the far more talented team. The best receiver on the field also belonged to Pittsburgh at the time. It was Jordan Addison. So there's no question that the Kenny Pickett was surrounded with some good weapons. Van Dyke, he took over for De'Ara King, got off to a rocky start. And then as soon as he kind of settled in, the final 6 games that Miami went 5-1, which definitely bodes well for Canes fans when it comes to what you're thinking about for this upcoming season. And you just look at him and you say, okay, he's got the NFL body, he's got the arm strength, he's got a lot to prove, obviously. He's very limited playing time so far, but a lot of the skill set that I've seen so far definitely looks like an NFL quarterback, looks like a guy that could even possibly go in the top 10, and I think Levis is probably in that range as well. If there's a team there like Seattle, perhaps, that's looking for a quarterback at the end of the top 10, would not be surprised if Van Dyke and Levis are in play. That's where I think that they rank right now. I think that maybe by the time we get to next year, could be a very, very different story. All right, let's move on to number 2. And this is where it really comes down to, it's kind of 1A and 1B at this point between these two guys. But I am going to make a little bit of differentiation here. And at number 2, I have Bryce Young. Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner, obviously a national champion the year before, and went to a national championship game as a sophomore, likely going to win another national championship this upcoming season. Phenomenal resume to work with here. Great stats last year that just blow you away as soon as you look at them. He played really, really well all year long up until his top 2 options ended up getting hurt. And now his top 2 options were both drafted this year in the top 50, whatever, some odd picks in the draft, and Jamison Williams and John Mechie. The only problem is that now those guys are not there. Is he able to step up and find a way to succeed with a much less proven cast of receivers? Alabama has a ton of talent all over the field right now for this team. Their offensive line should be a little bit better, and they have a ton of talent returning on defense. But the receiver room is a little bit I don't want to say suspect, but a little bit unproven. I think they have guys like JoJo Earl there, who's a speedster, absolutely take the top off an offense, or top off for an offense. And I think that Young is definitely going to find a way to make it all work. But is this going to be one of those things where if he doesn't play quite as well, are we all going to start to go, well, maybe it was really just a product of the offense he was in? I don't know that's necessarily the case. I still have him at number 2 among my quarterbacks in my top 5 when it comes to overall players at this point. But I do have some questions about him and some concerns. He's very undersized. He's 6 foot, 194 pounds. That's right, 194. That's an incredibly slim build, and I don't know if that's going to survive at the next level. It's not even about the height. The height is definitely, I think we've moved past that in a lot of ways. 6 foot's a little undersized for modern day quarterbacks at this point. We've seen Russell Wilson make it work. We've seen Baker Mayfield. We've seen a bunch of Kyler Murray. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks who maybe don't check the box from they're 6'4" and above and all of that type of stuff. We've seen those guys figure it out, teams scheme it to make it more feasible. How am I leaving out Drew Brees in all of this? Guy was barely over 6 feet tall, made it work in the NFL. No question it's possible. The 194 pounds is the bigger concern here. The fact that he's got such a slight frame, I worry about him being able to hold up in the NFL. And unfortunately, that is something you have to think about when you're drafting a franchise quarterback. This is the guy that you're expecting to invest in for the next 10, 15, hell, in the case of Tom Brady, 20 years. So you want to make sure you're getting this right, and you want to make sure you're finding a guy who's going to be there for the long haul. Young hasn't really had any injuries so far in college, which is a great thing, and I hope that continues. That being said, it is a bit of a red flag, and it's something that teams are going to have to kind of battle with as they go through evaluating this player. It's something that I'm aware of at this point, and I think part of the reason why I have him a half step lower than the next guy on my list at this point, and that is CJ Stroud. Stroud, to me, is the number 1 player in this draft when it comes to the quarterback position at this point. There's a non-quarterback who I have ranked above him in Will Anderson, but we'll get to that later. He did not have a great start to last year, but really finished the year strong. Passes the eye test in a big way, big arm, really good accuracy when you watch him play. Fantastic statistical output last year, 44 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 72% completion percentage, which is great. Now, granted, he's playing basically in like an NFL offense already. He's got some of the best talent, probably the best talent at wide receiver that anybody could possibly ask for. His top 2 targets last year were drafted 10 and 11 overall in the NFL draft this past year in Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And he's still playing with Jackson Smith and Jigba, who might be the best of all of those 3. And, oh, by the way, he's got Marvin Harrison Jr., who's no slouch as well. He obviously plays for Ryan Day. So, yes, he's in a very friendly system here. But it's one of those things where I know that it's a bit of a product of that. But I also think he would not be as successful if he also wasn't this talented. We've seen plenty of Ohio State quarterbacks that have been good, but not great, or they have question marks about this. I don't know that Stroud really has those question marks. Stroud, to me, seems like the complete package, a guy that you're going to be able to build your team around for the future. He's not incredibly mobile, but he can obviously get out on out of the pocket and make it work. But he's a pocket passer. He's a physical presence there in the middle of the field. You don't have to worry about him being able to see over the line or anything like that. He's 6'3". He checks the size boxes there as well. I think he's the clear-cut number 1 quarterback right now. It's not much of a gap between him and Bryce Young, but if you give me a choice between those two, as of right now, I'm taking CJ Stroud. I just think he's a little bit more scheme versatile. I like what he brings to the table from a size perspective. And of course, the arm strength does not hurt at all. The arm talent is definitely there. So another guy that, again, these are guys that we're splitting hairs here between guys that will likely go in the top 10. I certainly would be surprised if he's not a top 5 pick next year. Heck, he could be the number 1 overall pick depending on who ends up with that selection. The Detroit Lions would not be a shock at all to see CJ Stroud rocking a Detroit Lions uniform when the 2023 season rolls around. So those are my top 5 quarterbacks. I want to keep these episodes short. I won't go too much more in depth than that. But yeah, we're already off and running right now. I'm starting player evaluations. Going to be doing some running backs in the upcoming weeks. Got some different ideas in mind for what we're going to be doing once the season actually kicks off in just a few weeks, and we kind of have games every single week, and how we're going to approach that whole thing. And I'm really excited about it, really looking forward to it. So this is your first time listening to their show. First of all, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. You can always follow me on social media. You're able to find me at cmcglynn84 on Twitter. You can follow the Aftermath at Aftermath Sports on Twitter, also on Facebook. Working on adding Instagram, TikTok, that type of thing as well at some point down the line. And I do not want to forget this because it's been a very, very long time since I ran the draft contest, but I want to congratulate our second and third place winners from this. I actually held on to this intentionally because I felt like it was kind of unfair to give them their prizes basically during the off season where there's not really as much content. So Matt Murphy, congratulations. You have won a free month subscription to the Draft Scout. And Dylan Abisekura, I really hope I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. He's going to win a full month subscription to The Athletic. So both of those will be in your inbox in the upcoming days. I promise you, I have not forgotten. I really appreciate everyone for participating in that this year as well. And yeah, I wanted to at least, I figured now that we're actually into the NFL season, we've got football content coming again. This is a better time to be able to have those free subscriptions and be able to utilize that and get all that great content that both of those sites create. So congratulations again to Matt and to Dylan for placing second and third in our draft contest. So thank you again, everyone, so much for tuning in. Remember to rate, review, subscribe, all of that great stuff. You can find the podcast on Stitcher, on Anchor, on Spotify, on YouTube now. If you're watching this, of course, so you can find it on YouTube. So remember to subscribe on YouTube as well. Give it a like, share it with your friends if you like what you see, all that type of stuff. I really appreciate it all. And you guys will hear from me again soon. Looking forward to the next time we get a chance to chat.